Morgan.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming to being a guest on this podcast. Are we well? Um, Today's conversation with you is about grief and your personal experience in navigating grief. And this is just such an important conversation because I've had so many people in my close circle experience tremendous loss. And so your words, your experience that you're going to share is going to be so powerful and relevant. So thank you for being here.
Of course. I'm excited to be here.
So before we get into it, I want to introduce you and let folks know all the amazing things you've established and accomplished in your life.
Thank you.
So professionally, you're the founder and CEO of Blended Studios, an award-winning software development firm revolutionizing driver hiring in the $940 billion trucking industry. You stepped into the CEO role at Everwoke following your brother's passing, Cameron, an act of both love and leadership, just kind of stepping right in. And Everwoke then turned into
Everwoke and Blended are two different companies.
Two different companies, okay.
But Everwoke inspired Blended.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then from genomics researcher to a science teacher, merchandising analyst to national education innovation leader, your path has been rooted in disruption, purpose, and transformation. You're also a philanthropist, speaker, author, and you serve on several boards. There's so much to admire in everything that you've built.
Thank you.
And established.
Thank you.
But I know that underneath all the things that you've done is this grief.
Yes.
And so in June 2021, your world and your family's world shifted when you lost your twin brother, Cameron. Can you tell us about your relationship with Cameron and what made your bond as twins so unique?
Yeah, for sure. It's always special and fun to talk about Cameron, Cammy, which I affectionately call him. But I feel like there's who everyone else knows and there's who I know. So Cameron, to the Utah community, was quite a pillar of diversity and business. His voice was so meaningful and powerful. For me, he was my annoying twin brother. We fought, we laughed, but we were also each other's biggest champion. And we were he was the yin to my yang, and it's actually funny being twins. First, we were never known as the twins. But Cameron and I, we operated through the world just really understanding the power of two and what it meant to, hey, here's your role, here's my role. We didn't really play in redundancies. And so he was a visionary. I made sure it happened. He was funny. I was serious. I got good grades. He was reckless.
That's a good way to put it.
And so, but we were just two people really operating and trying to figure out our way in how to run the world, in doing that together. We used to say that we were together, we were the perfect person. And so when you think about, people who will do the bold action, but then actually go make it happen. Together, we were able to do that. And so that was our twinning, our twin relationship. So, yeah.
That's amazing because I met Cameron several years ago, and he was very much like the go-getter.
Yeah.
I remember him and I were trying to plan some event, and it was going to be a small event. I mean, my mind.
Not a Cameron.
And then when you get caught up in the Cameron of it all, it becomes a big event where we rent a big venue and we have a whole bunch of people come, hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yes.
And how do we make this a whole 3-day, big event? And I was just like, oh, you're really pushing me to think really big.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I remember that part of him and just this visionary, this imaginative person. And then you being his sort of the grounding person to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah, and it worked, and
Yeah.
that's really just how we did life. From the small things to the big things. It's like, oh, it's Mother's Day, we need a present, and I'm like, let's get Mom flowers. Flowers? No, we got to get the biggest bouquet, the best.
We got to buy the floral shop.
Basically. And I'm like, Cameron, what? Okay, well, let me go figure it out. Let me go see how we could make this happen. And so no matter what, he was the big, bold leader in our relationship. And I was behind the scenes, making sure it happened, keeping him grounded, and making sure the impact was there. So that's just who we were.
And so when he passed away, walk us through sort of the things that you were navigating in the instant. You and I talked behind the scenes, and you told me some of the things that you had to. It was about getting things done. There was a lot going on, and you didn't even have the time to process what was happening. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So I remember June 3rd, 2021. Like the back of my hand. It started out as such a normal day. I got up, I went to the gym. If you know me, I love making black-eyed peas. So I started a pot of black-eyed peas because that's what dinner was going to be. And I was knee deep into my education career. And so I was about to present to my team the launch of the new accelerator I created. It was an exciting time. And then one knock on the door and one announcement just changed everything for me. And I feel like it was a process of I couldn't actually process. And I mean, when I say that, I remember the first thing I was concerned about was it not being true, and I needed socks. And I could not find socks. It was but just the thought process of first I need socks, then I need to go. Now I need to understand what happened. And even once I did, there were so many questions. I had to notify people. I had to get service arrangements. I had to make very hard decisions. And so there was no space to process. And it wasn't just that day. There was no space to process, honestly, for months. And I think that's one of the, like, if I were to share a grief journey, I feel like that's the start of it. It goes from disbelief to trying to get organized. People have real questions. There's the real business of grief and loss and all the things that I don't think people always lean into or realize or understand. And then there's the day after, where you realize life happens forward and you are still there. And what do you do? Who do you become? And all the things and the labels. So kind of going on a tangent, but my grief journey was interesting. So it was combined with a lot of administration, a lot of keeping it together and answering questions. And then it also came with a lot of labels. People called me twinless. And I was like, whoa. Like the first time I heard that, I was whoa.
Are these like people, are they in your family, or is just like,
well, I think
it's interesting what people would say in your family as opposed to people who are kind of out in the periphery.
Yeah, I think more out in the periphery.
Yeah.
Just trying to help me understand or offering condolences. You know, I know you're twinless now. Whoa. Or your only child. Oh. My parents, they lost a child. They weren't childless, but they had lost a child. And so you're dealing with the admin, you're dealing with the labels, you're consoling other people while trying to figure out your life at the same time. It was a lot. It's a lot to figure out all at once. And so, yeah.
And you know, the interesting thing about this is you going spring into getting things done, and you and I talked about this too, is that systemically, those things are not set up.
No.
From funeral to finances to, assets. You called it the administrative pieces or the business parts of it.
Yeah.
It's not really set up
No.
for those who have experienced a death in the family.
Well, for some, but I will say at 33, no, no, we weren't necessarily thinking about that.
Yeah.
At 33, with no children, Cameron he was engaged but not married at the time. We're 33, we're not thinking about these things.
Yeah.
Not deeply, at least. And so, and there isn't a lot of structure or support. And so and I actually think, I don't know if people really consider all of that. You're trying to make all these decisions. You're trying to figure things out. You're consoling yourself. You're consoling other people. You're getting all these new labels and realizations about who you are now. And there's the business aspects, and you have to make very real decisions about someone's assets in life and where they're going to sleep for the rest of their lives. And it was both an exhausting time, but a time where I really wanted to honor Cameron at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, and try to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't know, it's a journey and a process that is complex, multi-layered, and no one can really prepare you for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you feel like you had to carry a lot of that pressure?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For a couple of reasons. One, Cameron asked me to. And so before his passing, he did go through a series of surgeries, and we sat down, and before he had his first surgery, we got into a really honest conversation just about, hey, if something should happen, what do you want? Another thing about Cameron, he was very clear in what he wanted. And so everything from, he wanted to be comfortable if he needed to be buried, so he wanted to wear a sweatsuit, and that was non-negotiable, down to he wanted a parade. And so, mind you, as we discussed,
I love this.
As we've discussed, Cameron was a big thinker, and I was the one who made it happen.
Yeah.
And so, but that was important. And so I had to carry that. One, because he asked me. Two, I was just very aware of where I was in this process.
Yeah.
My parents had lost a child.
Yeah.
His fiance lost her fiance. I lost a brother, my twin. And I know all of those are very difficult situations, but I did frankly feel like I was the best position to carry things forward. And so I did.
Have you always been that way?
I have.
Okay.
I've always been the grown up, the adult. Cameron got to play. I made sure the dishes got done. So that it was very much the role I played for our family. And I don't pretend like it was a burden. It was an honor to be asked to do this. It was an honor to be able to do this. And that holding it together has been a part of, for a long time, my identity in a lot of ways. So I was the hold it together one. And so, yeah.
When were you able to fall apart?
Oh, I remember October.
Okay.
So June was the burials. The summer was a lot of the administration. I'm very operationally efficient, so I had project plans and delegation.
This is why you're a CEO. Makes sense. For big corporations.
Yes.
In the biggest industry.
Yes.
Very male-dominated industry.
Yes.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So had project plans, delegated, meetings, regular cadence. And so we got all that done. And by October, that was my moment to effectively fall apart. So just imagine, I've been going months not processing this, but October I frankly announced to everyone I'm running away for a whole month, and I did. I took a solo trip. I went to go see my friends. I sat in the grass and under trees. And in the process, it wasn't just relaxation. It was the realization that the life I'd always planned for was no more. And so what does that mean? Like I mentioned, there were no redundancies in me and Cameron's relationship. So if the visionary part of us is gone, if the bold, fearless leadership part of us is gone, if my champion, if the guy who went out and made all our friends is gone, what does that mean? What does that mean for me in my life, and who am I now? And I feel like the months leading up to October, the conversation was, well, just get back to life. Just, get back to the life you knew. And I think that's one of the biggest fallacies in grief. Yeah. The life you knew is no longer. And that's one of the hardest parts to accept. Yeah. And then the biggest question then becomes, okay, well then who are you? Who are you now? And that's a big and scary, complex question. But ultimately, grief, I found it to be a perspective-changing event in my life. And so if you don't go back and you can only live forward, what do you do?
What does that look like? And you had mentioned that this has been transformational for you, and just even the process of you taking the time to fall apart, to think about what your life is now moving forward.
Yeah.
Really re-identifying with yourself.
Yeah. How
is that transformation? I guess, what does that transformation look like?
Yeah. It's hard to talk about exactly what it looks like. I know how it's manifested.
Yeah.
When you're in the mess of it all, it's a little different. But there are specific things I remember will hold on to. So one, time. I feel like we're all so arrogant to think, I have tomorrow, or I'll wait. Cameron was 33. We're twins, and to see someone not just my age, but someone I know deeply, have no more time. I don't tomorrow my life away. Oh. You just can't. And then love. I loved Cameron. Cameron, as much as we fought, and most people don't know that part.
Well, he's your brother. I mean, it makes sense. Right. Yeah.
But we had a legitimate brother-sister relationship, so we did. We did fight a lot, but in the most loving of ways, of course.
Yeah.
But love, when you know that you love someone so deeply and you can lose them, you cherish moments differently. You just do. And I can remember the days leading up to when Cameron passed, and even the small things, like he told me he was thirsty, and so I took him to Portillo's and got him a Sprite that he didn't ask for. It's a small thing. There's nothing monumental about that, but it is now. And so I cherish those small and big moments with the people I love. But I will say one of the biggest things is fear. I used to operate a lot. When you think about, here's the opportunity. A lot of us go to, but what's the worst thing that can happen? And one thing I learned is that we're not very good at imagining our worst fears. Losing my twin brother at 33, could never imagined it. And so instead of me spending so much time on what's the worst that can happen, let me use my little imagination on what's the best that can happen. And from what I could imagine, what if it's even better than that? And so time, fear, love, all these things have just transformed for me
Wow.
in very big ways, and it has created a transformation. Am I afraid to do things? Yeah, but it will never be the scariest thing I've ever done anymore. Do love. I went from never thinking I would love or wanted to love anyone that deeply again to finding my forever. I got married 7 months ago now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I've seen pictures.
Yes.
Amazing.
Oh, yes. Rocky Mountain Bride named it the event of the season.
Whoa. I love it.
You.
Think big.
Well, but and actually some of that is inspired by Cameron. Me uprooting my life, moving to Utah.
Yeah.
Oh, and so that's another thing that's changed. What's possible for me. And so I had a wonderful, beautiful life in Chicago. I'd built a decades-long career in education innovation. I was traveling the world. It was wonderful. And then I inherited a trucking logistics automation company based in Utah. And it's, it was scary. And people, you don't know what you're doing. You know nothing about this. You don't have to do this. And I know I'm perfectly clear, but I want to. I want to take the adventure. I just want to learn what it is. And who knew what ultimately this would all become. Now I live in Utah, which I think Cameron is in heaven laughing because I told him I would never, ever move to Utah. And now, not only do I live here, I got married here.
I mean, you're here.
I'm here.
And not only that, you're well established here too.
Yeah.
And not just through Cameron, because Cameron, socialite, everybody knows Cameron. He's touched so many lives and has become sort of a brother to several people here in Utah. But you've paved your own way here.
Yeah.
You're not Cameron's sister. I don't think of you as Cameron's sister. You have so many things that you've accomplished here in Utah. So you're here and you're here to stay. It seems like you've really put some roots here.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And even that. So it's actually funny in Chicago, I am very much known as Cameron's sister to this day. And even that was a transformation for me. In Utah, I did start there. I did start in that place. But again, I'd also made a decision that I have to step into a new version of life. Yeah. And so just as everyone's wondering, well, who is Morgan? I had the opportunity to define that. And I did it boldly, wildly, sprinkle in a little recklessness.
Like you said, you're like Cameron, right?
well, inspired by Cameron.
Yeah.
So I am careful because sometimes I do feel like people will look at and watch the story and say, oh, are you trying to be like your brother? And I'll tell anybody, Cameron wore a size 14 shoes. I wore 7.5. And so, no, I will never be able to comfortably walk in his shoes. I will literally be flopping around, looking like a clown. So that which is never the goal.
Yeah.
But I am inspired to be a bit bolder, because I don't have the person who's gonna. It's not just go make the plan happen. It's, well, what do you want the plan to be, and go make it happen. And so I've become more of an and person.
Yeah.
Then this is my lane.
Yeah.
My lane got broken. And so I've had to create a new space for myself. And I think if you're anybody who's going through any sort of process of change, and really grief is a process of change.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go through it, you should be different than you were before. And I hope people give themselves permission to be different than they were before. Yeah. And people ask, like, well, how have you got through this? This just sounds so difficult. Well, I had to evolve. I had to
Mhm.
change. And in some ways I see it as a gift. I feel like Cameron gave me a gift of a new journey, of a new life, of a new opportunity, of an excuse to just go crazy. Well, when someone gives you a gift, what do you say?
Say thank you.
But if they can't hear you, then what do you
You
do?
live it.
You live it.
Yeah.
You live the gratitude. And when someone gives you one of the most expensive gifts of meaning of like literally his life,
Mhm.
you better say thank you in a real big way and really just embrace it. And so that's what I feel like I'm doing more than anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you touched on this a little bit with people just kind of saying things to you that were pretty jarring. And I'm curious, what are some misconceptions around grief? Because I've heard a lot of people kind of talk about how they feel like people, well-meaning people, are rushing them through grief, or it'll get better, or it'll like there's all these sayings and things that
Yeah.
people say because they're uncomfortable. They don't know how to entirely comfort
Yeah.
somebody. What are some of those things, those misconceptions, so that we can just let people know, hey, let's not do that?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. And even going through it, I still don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
That will really be comforting for people. Because I think one of the things we get caught up in is, well, what would I want? How would I handle this, or how would I feel?
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at someone else's story, your first thought is, I'm so sorry. You feel a sense of uh, maybe compassion, but you know, I'm so sorry. And immediately you just want it to be better for them.
Yeah.
But it's not. It won't. It's not a quick. There's no quick fix. And everybody doesn't react the same. Everyone doesn't have the same level of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think, or proximity. And I do think that that's one thing to acknowledge. When Cameron passed, you know, I don't know publicly that people realized all that I was doing on a day-to-day basis behind the scenes to bring his services made possible, to make sure his assets were taken care of. The level of decision and conversation I was going through. I'm also not a person who enjoys being coddled. My mother would tell you, even as a baby, hugs were not my thing. And so I don't want the hug. I'm not going to cry in front of just anyone.
Yeah.
And a part of my identity was being strong. And so I did not want people to feel bad or sorry. I think even my family, that's not how we operate. We go forward. We are forward people. And we are people who learn. We learn backward, but we live forward. And and I don't know it. You do have to understand who you're dealing with, and so that's step one. Number two, I do think that the thing that was most jarring for me is needing to console other people in my deepest moment of grief.
Yeah.
And that's hard, especially there were so many people who loved my brother. Oh my goodness. And the way the community showed up for him and showed up for our family, it was beautiful. But I was not able to take on the responsibility of helping them through their moment as well. And I do feel like that may have offended some people.
Wait, can you tell me how that looked like? Because that's interesting, because I have not seen boundaries Not in my circle, boundaries put on like, hey, people jump into, okay, like let me put my stuff aside and let me comfort you.
Yeah.
Other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious what that looks like.
I'll give you a very tangible example. So I come from a very large, loving family. And when all this happened, they came out. My parents' house was that was ground zero for all the love and everything that needed to happen, which was more than appropriate. But I couldn't be there. I couldn't be there. The first night I tried to be there, I'd just come back from the burial ground. I just picked out Cameron's burial space with my father. And the moment I walked in, someone grabs me and starts crying. And I think in a effort for me to cry with them or for them to show how they understand how hard this is for me. But that was not the moment or space I could be in. And I left.
Yeah.
I needed time. I needed time for myself. And people were so worried. Like, oh, Morgan, she needs people. She needs to be here. And I couldn't.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it together to quite literally write and run a project plan. I'm very serious. It was color coded and everything.
You're focused. You have your tabs. You have your Excel sheets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and it was. Yes. I'm running meetings. I'm making decisions, and I just don't think people were aware of that. And I would have loved to break down in that moment and collapse, but I didn't have that option.
Yeah.
And even I remember the day everything happened, the moment I started crying, the first question was, well, we have to notify such and such. And I'm like, oh, well, I have to make a phone call. And it just
started right then and there.
It just started right then and there. And so I don't know. I feel like the less proximate you are, the more emotional space you get, but those that are in it, they might not have as much space as you might think.
Yeah.
An emotional capacity as you might think in that moment. Yeah. That does not say don't show up. I'm not saying don't offer anything, but I think that the people who asked, what can I do? Those are the most meaningful ask.
And sometimes you don't even know
what you need.
Yeah, what you need, especially if you're, I'm sure if you're in your mode of like, I've got stuff like that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And you're not quite in the emotional space at the moment. It's kind of hard to I'm assuming it's kind of hard to even articulate what you need to somebody else.
It is.
From them.
It is. And I will say people who showed up to take care of the other people, those are my favorite people. And so, food's a big thing. When someone passes, in a lot of cultures, food's a really big thing. Me personally, I was on what I now call the grief diet. I've never been so snatched in my life.
I remember you said that. I was like, okay.
I think I lost about 15 to 18 pounds in a matter of a couple weeks. Now I am not endorsing.
Sure.
This is a diet. But I did. I looked really great. But at the same time, there were other people who they did need to eat. They did need sustenance, and to expect me or my parents to show up for them, it was just nearly impossible. But there were people who took care of those people. There were people who did ask me, what did I need? There were people who, even beyond that moment, continue to show up for me. And those are like the beautiful moments. And I think that the headline here is everyone's journey is a little bit different. know who you're dealing with, because how people identify does matter in that moment. If I want to be strong, don't try to get me to cry.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, just honor where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious because you had mentioned your identity and sort of what life looks like for you now.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of in this new version of your life. And I remember you saying that your family, what was the motto? Was dream big and then bigger?
Dream big, then bigger than that.
Then bigger than that.
Yes.
So how are you, Morgan, dreaming big and then bigger than that?
It's funny because I feel like I tell the story of what's happened and people are, wow, oh my gosh, these are the small steps to me. We haven't even got to the biggest version of the dream yet.
Yeah.
For example, me stepping in to lead Cameron's company Everwoke, that was as much as people enjoy it being portrayed as a bold act of leadership, it was honestly more administrative than anything. Someone had to land the plane or figure out where it was going to go. But in that process, I learned some things about myself. I learned some things about what Cameron was building, the industry he was playing in, and it was, wow, oh, this is fun. Okay. So how do we do this in the most Morgan of ways? And and so I did take what someone called the big, bold step of leading a company, of starting a new one. But really, I love school. I love to learn. What really happened is I got into school.
Yeah.
And I learned a way to transition what Cameron's idea into something that could really be tangible and drive impact in an industry. And that's how Blended was born. And the name Blended is really a nod to Cameron. He did before he passed, he had an idea for a new company called Blended. And very different concept, but nod to him. Yeah. And it was his inspiration that created it. It was my operational prowess that got it off the ground. And so the blending of the minds.
Love. Makes sense.
Blending of the minds. It really came together to make that possible. But that's one. Two, I'm feeling again, which people might say, well, how's that dreaming big? But sincerely, I was numb. I was numb when all of this happened, and trying to love just wasn't a thing. And then I met my now husband. He started out as, like most people, a stranger on the street. But
you met him here in Utah?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. We met in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, so we met in Chicago. Same year Cameron passed in late September, right before my personal collapse.
Your October.
Yep, Morgan's October. But but we met in September, and I remember he's actually a person who showed me how to love, and how to feel. So I remember the first time I really felt anything after Cameron's passing. There was a huge spider outside of my house that had made a massive web, and exactly. and I did. I'm calling my father. I'm calling my cousin. Like, someone save me from this spider. And everybody's got
they're lethal. Like, yeah,
right.
Yes.
And everyone's just laughing at me like it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. But he looked at. We were on the phone, and mind you, just a guy I'm dating, and he said, "You sound really scared." And I was like, "I am." And he was like, "Well," and mind you, he had never been to my house, so we were that early. And he was like, "Well, I'll come over and kill it." And it's like, "Oh, you want something?" But he didn't. He came over, he killed the spider, and I went from feeling afraid to safe, in a matter of moments. And he left. He he left. He did not want anything.
Yeah.
He was like, "Do you feel good now?" I'm like, "Yes." And he left. I couldn't believe
Good man.
it. All right, good. He's a great man. but he that sparked something in me. How do you really show up for people and deeply care about them, even and really listen to what they need? And he taught and showed me how to listen and learn and care and feel. And he's taken all my fears, all my wildest dreams, and just made me feel safe to just go and keep going. But that's a big, bold step. And especially I'm operating, loving him deeply, knowing I could lose him at any time. But the moments that we have possible together, I'm going to take full advantage of them.
That's so beautiful.
So I'm laughing bigger and smiling harder and just enjoying him. And even life, I've come to learn. I used to spend so much time planning and defining. And I still make spreadsheets. This is true, but
I have a feeling.
This is
like
true.
she does that. I know she does.
Yeah, I mean, that's very much a part of me. But at the same time, I've released some things, and I'm up for the adventure, and that's how I see life now. Not where will I be in 5 years? I don't know, but it's going to be the grandest freaking adventure possible, and the story that's going to come out of it is going to be the wildest story ever told. And I do feel like if you ever get a chance to read Cameron's obituary, which was really crafted, the narrative was really crafted by my mother. It's like, wow, this is like the greatest story ever told. And how did this dude live such a big life in 33 years? And what I know about Cameron is it's because he decided to. And so that's how I'm operating. I don't want the Morgan lived and did all the right things.
Yeah.
Because I did. And I was happy with that. But now, I don't know. Let's get a little color in this story. Let's jazz it up. And one day my story will end. And I'm very aware of that. All of ours will. But instead of that being our greatest fear, that's the greatest asset. Like, so if you know that, make it a good one. And so I'm just trying to step and act and move and love as deep and bold and wild as possible. And yeah.
I mean, I see it in you, even as you're talking. Like, you're not just saying the things. I know you're living the things. And I've seen you give talks, and I've seen you do panels, and you're the same. You're same in those areas, and you're same here. It's you're in yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really beautiful, especially when you're talking about how you were numb for a little bit and sort of operational and just kind of focused on the administrative pieces, that you're now, really in tune with just you and the love aspect of it, the deep love aspect, and the small things, killing a spider or
that was
getting someone something to drink when they're thirsty. Like the little things that you're doing to experience love in the smallest of ways is just such a. It gets me thinking about, like, how am I living my life? Am I noticing these things? Am I paying attention to these relationships that I have deeply?
Yeah.
So I think that's just something. It's a great reminder for us at the moment.
I appreciate that, and I do. I think one of the misconceptions of dream big, then bigger than that, is you're doing, I don't know, extreme things,
like grandiose,
like jumping out of planes, which I have done, but that's not every day.
Yeah.
It is stepping out in a new faith. It is doing things even though you're scared. It is going deep because you can and you're passionate about something. It is, I'm gonna quit my job and go be a tech CEO. what? You don't even know how to do that yet.
Like, I'm going to learn.
I'm going to learn. Yeah. And it's those leaps of faith to feel again, to be again, to transform, to evolve, and give yourself grace, because you are doing something new. And when people ask me like, oh, well, what do you do for work? It's kind of joking, but kind of not. I don't start with, oh, I founded a company. No, I wake up and try to believe in myself every day.
Wow.
And it is the hardest job out there.
Yeah.
But there's so much doubt and fear, and you'll just stay in the same place, which you can. And sometimes you do. You need strategic rest sometimes. And I actually feel like I'm actually in that period right now of needing to pause and needing another spurt of reflection, because things have happened and moved so fast. I went from the quiet one to being on national TV and on podcasts and in magazines. Never, ever would I have ever imagined this had we spoken 5 years, if you spoke to me 5 years ago. And so my life has just transformed in new and different ways. Mm-hmm. But dream big, then bigger than that is really a mantra of keep going, go boldly. And my husband will say, well, if we have a decision, which one's going to make the best story? Let's go with that one.
That's good.
But that's kind of terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
But it is about just, I don't know, living deeply.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Especially when time is the greatest currency.
Yeah.
It's you don't have a lot of it. People are living, breathing, doing great. You just don't know.
You just don't know. And so, which means you can't afford to, well, I'll just do it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then tomorrow, now it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
It's actually, I don't know, it's an arrogant place to be. Like, oh, I have tomorrow. Do you?
Yeah.
You do not control this.
Yeah.
And that's the other part of the thing about dream big, then bigger than that. You don't control it. Mm-hmm. And so you get to make the decision, but ultimately what's going to happen, you have no idea.
Yeah.
You have no idea. I don't know where this journey is about to lead. I don't know where it's going to go. Even being married for a few months, we've had some curveballs.
Oh, there's several more of that curveball coming.
Oh boy. And I'm sure there'll be so much more. But I don't know. I could be mad about it. I could be stressed about it. I could be all the things, or I could just enjoy it as life's journey. Yeah. And that's just what it is. And it will be a really good story one day.
Yeah. No, I love this. Oh my goodness, Morgan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Even I can't imagine it being just easy to talk about, but also honoring your brother, Cameron, and also sharing just who you are right now.
Yeah.
Which is the most profound message for people who are even in the thick of it, or, and grief doesn't just go. You're always living with it.
Yeah.
But the experience and your story, even now, and the unwritten parts of it, is very inspiring. And so I really appreciate you sharing that.
I appreciate that. And anyone going through, or especially starting a grief journey, my prayer and hope for them is to know that this is a journey, and they're not less. And I say that because the labels, twin less, brother less, mother less, father less, you're not less. but your story is going to be and look different. And that is, like I said, it's a moment, and you do have permission to perceive some things differently, and it will be a transformation. And I just hope everyone realizes they have agency to create whatever that journey is going to be. Because once you do, and once you recognize that, past the fear and the loss and all of that will live with you forever.
Yeah.
But you have to live forward, and which is no easy feat. Yeah. But it's your gift. The fact you get tomorrow is your gift, and so say thank you, and in the biggest, boldest, wildest, most adventurous way possible. So
live that gift.
Live the gift.
Yeah.
I like that. Live the gift. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Morgan. I really appreciate this. Is what an honor, to know both you and Cameron.
Thank you.
And what an honor to see just the beauty in you and the ways that you're living your brother's legacy, but also just being you, who we need in this world.
I appreciate that.
And I just I'm in so much gratitude of you. So thank you.
Thank you. And to Cammie, I love you always and forever. And truly, he's inspiring so many things, not just in me, but in other people. And it's so fun to watch. And I love hearing the stories. And I just I can't wait to see. It's like he's still writing a story.
Yeah.
And so I can't wait to can't wait to meet him again or see him again and go from there. Yeah.
We'll put Cameron's eulogy in a link just so that people can get to know him a bit and understand this big personality of a person.
I was going to say, you asked me in the beginning, and I'm like, there's so much. But yeah, no,
we'll put that in there so that people can also know him through this as well.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you.